안녕하세요. 저는 매금이라고 합니다. 오늘은 한국어를 거의 1년을 습득을 한 제가 한국어 배우기 전에 알고 있었으면 하는 것들 3가지를 얘기하려고 합니다. Korean is one of the easiest languages to read, and the number of people learning Korean is also getting higher in recent years because of K-pop and K-drama and K-food. I was also one of them. I studied abroad in South Korea for a year to study Korean language. Living in South Korea changed the way I approach learning Korean and also the way I view Korean language. I was quite surprised with the differences between Japanese culture and Korean culture, even though it's geographically close to each other. So today, let me share some of the things I wish I knew before learning Korean, from my personal experiences and also my perspective. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Megumi. I was born and raised in Japan and I studied abroad in South Korea for a year when I was 20. I love learning languages and currently I can speak English, Japanese, Korean and working on my 4th language, German. I often talk about knowing about the culture helps you to improve your target language and to understand that language. But I would say I had a benefit when I learned Korean. For native Japanese speakers, it's not that much hard to learn Korean because it's less of a jump linguistically. The grammar is almost the same. So if you can speak Japanese, I recommend learning Korean in Japanese. Or if you can already speak Korean, then you might want to learn Japanese in Korean. As always, I put timestamps down below, so feel free to skip around the video if you feel like it. Without further ado, let's dive into the video. Number 1. Korean people use high-level vocab. Korean use difficult words quite frequently. Because of the highly competitive academic society in Korea, it's very common people use advanced vocabulary. Sometimes you might feel like saying, "Are you a genius?" when you hear how sophisticated their language can be. As shown in the Korean Englishman video, the range of expressions they use is also quite broad. From a Japanese perspective, Korean and Japanese are quite similar in terms of vocabulary and also grammatically. However, the Korean tend to use kanji words more often compared to Japanese people. This adds an extra layer of complexity to the language and makes their speech more advanced. These words may be used to express nuance or sophistication in speech. Also, good, 좋다, 훌륭하다, 대단하다. While these words can be translated simply in English as good, in Korean, using them in the right context elevates the tone of the conversation. My friend from Singapore, she told me Koreans have such a variety of expressions when speaking. They often think about how their words might affect the listener rather than just choosing the easiest or most comfortable words. This is not only because of the honorific system in Korean, but also due to highly academic society in Korea where people used to using a wide range of vocabulary as part of their daily habits. In Korea, even difficult words are commonly used in everyday conversations. The words that Korean often use, which I personally find it difficult, is 본격적으로, 결정적인, 한심해. When learning Korean, expanding your vocab and knowing different ways to express yourself is crucial for speaking with native Koreans. I remember in the early stages of my Korean, when I had a conversation with a Korean, I only spoke in simple terms, and Korean friends were trying to speak while doing some easy word choice to help me understand. But typically, native Koreans tend to avoid using the same expressions or the words repeatedly. So if you know more words, it will be better. Here's a approach. There are no wasted words when you're learning Korean vocab. It almost all be used in most of the conversations. Here's cons. If you lack vocabulary, it becomes difficult to understand a native conversation. If you want to improve your Korean skills, building up your vocabulary is essential. Personally, I don't like learning vocab and memorizing it, so I didn't prioritize it at the beginning, but later that I regret it. I was like, oh, I wish I did. Still, I could possibly carry on a conversation without problems. But I'm sure people might have thought, I sounded like a kindergarten or elementary school student because of the limited vocab I used. I feel like choosing words depending on the situation and age is an important aspect of Korean culture. In English and Japanese, I focus on how I say things, how to convey my messages. But in Korean, I also pay attention what kind of words I use and how can I naturally put together with complex vocab. Number 2. Koreans are impatient. In Korea, there is a culture known as 빨리빨리, which means hurry up or quickly. This culture is also said that it's helped drive Korean economic development rapidly. Koreans prefer to get things done quickly and efficiently. Having spent time in a few countries, Korea, Australia, the UK, Germany, the Netherlands, and Spain, and Japan, I believe there's no culture that valued speed and efficiency same as Korea. During my time living in Korea, the positive aspect of this culture I notice is how effective and fast people are at their work. I often find myself thinking like, how can they do it so quickly? They complete the task in about half the time I expected. The technology of Korea is also incredibly advanced, and the culture of trying out new things is truly impressive. But the negative side for me was that I was expected to keep up with the speed and efficiency too. If you're slow, you might be surprised or even frustrated by other people. They were like, "What are you doing?" or expressing irritation. Of course, this might be more of an issue in Seoul, which is the capital of South Korea where I used to live. So it would be possible that the pace of life there isn't different from the other parts of South Korea. In my case, as a foreigner, I found that if I made it clear I didn't understand the culture, they would be more patient with me. Coming from Okinawa, Japan, I had grown up in a much slower pace of life. So I was quite shocked by the fast-paced Korean culture. But once I got used to it, when I came back to Okinawa, I found myself the slower pace is sometimes frustrating, but still I adapted back in a week. I wonder if the weather might affect this slow-paced culture, because in Okinawa it's pretty much warm for the whole year. There seems to be a national tendency in Korea to complete things efficiently as possible. So when you deal with things like a shop staff or post office or shopping center in Korea, it's best to have your requests prepared and to get straight to the point in the first place. When I didn't know this, I used to try to practice my Korean by having conversations with them, but often people will look annoyed at me or walk away even if I hadn't finished speaking yet. I realized they value their time and prefer efficiency, so it's important to show respect by asking, "I would like to talk to you in Korean, so do you have time now?" at the beginning of the conversation. 제가 한국어로 좀 얘기하고 싶은데 지금 괜찮으세요? 제가 한국어로 좀 얘기하고 싶은데 지금 괜찮으세요? I think this approach shows respect for other person's time, so it's very important in Korea. From my personal experience, the only people who love having small talk with me were 아줌마. 아줌마 means middle-aged older people, a person like a mother. Except for those, people always seem too busy. Number 3, Koreans play a lot of games. You might be wondering, why is this important? But honestly, there's so many game lovers. I've never seen this much of game culture. Any gender from a young age, everyone loves playing games in Korea. It's part of their culture. Because of this, a lot of Korean slang, trending words, and even new expressions come from gaming. When people game, they often change how they express themselves and how they use words. Especially some vocab you can't find in textbooks or vocab lists, Koreans actually use those expressions a lot in daily conversation. So it's a great way to learn a real native language expressions from gaming. If you want to learn only polite or proper language, you might want to skip this part. But if you are curious about real native language, I highly recommend it. The reason gaming is so popular in Korea is because of the PC방, which is pretty much everywhere. These places have fast Wi-Fi and you can easily buy food and drinks at low prices. Many students stop by after school to game there. Since games are often played under the time pressure, people speak very quickly and uses lots of abbreviation and shorthand. I personally don't play PC games because I easily get game sick. So instead, I often watch Korean game YouTubers. My most favorite YouTuber is Haean, who's got more than 2 million subscribers at the moment. Number 4. Koreans are really good at speaking languages. As I mentioned earlier, South Korea is a highly education-focused society, and because of that, a relatively large number of people can speak English and Japanese, especially in tourist spots. When I first visited Korea, I was quite excited to speak in Korean, but what often happened to me was that people would speak to me, "Oh, are you Japanese?" and they would guide me in great Japanese. This happened quite often. I also had an American friend in my Korean language school who wanted to speak Korean with his Korean friends, but he said they wouldn't speak to me in Korean. Instead, whenever they were with me, they would speak to me in English. He said that even though he wanted to speak in Korean, they just kept speaking in English. I found this interesting, especially because I could tell how intense Korean education-focused society. People's mindset towards learning languages is on a completely another level. It really made me realize how strong the education-focused culture is here. So for those of you who want to speak Korean with Korean friends, don't give up if they try to speak to you in your native language. You can simply say, 제가 한국어를 공부하고 있어서 한국어로 얘기하고 싶어요. 도와주세요. 제가 한국어를 공부하고 있어서 한국어로 얘기하고 싶어요. 도와주세요. This means I am studying Korean, so I would like to speak in Korean. Can you help me? If you say this, I'm sure they will speak to you in Korean. By the way, some of my Korean friends have scored perfect TOEIC score, or some have TOEIC scores above 900. Even those people would say, I'm not really good at speaking English, which is insane. I felt their level is different. It's pretty impressive. Here's summary number 1. Korean people use high-level vocab. Number 2. Koreans are impatient. Number 3. Koreans play a lot of games. Number 4. Koreans are really good at speaking languages. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Still, I could possibly... Oh my goodness.